You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, your source of music news, stories, and 2 hour deep dive interviews with bands that have sold over 80 million albums. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as the guitarist and keyboard player for the multi-platinum selling and two-time Juno award-winning band Magic. The band's single Rude went to #1 in 8 countries and sold 12.4 million units, making it one of the best-selling singles of all time. So welcome to the podcast, Mark Pelli. Mark, how are you? And is it true that you can speak a little bit of Mandarin?
Yeah, I'm doing great, brother, and I can. Yeah, I was lucky to have some great teachers in the past. An ex-girlfriend's mom was a Mandarin teacher, and so she spoke to me very often in that and really helped me along. So, yeah, I was very lucky to learn some, and I actually released some Chinese music too because of that. So I was kind of happy they gave me a background in their culture and language, and it really helped me to, communicate and deliver songs. I love singing in other languages. My family's Italian. I speak quite a bit of Italian too, and I like singing in that language. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of language and the world and all the different cultures and everything. I'm a big nerd for all that stuff.
And was the origin story of you having a desire to learn Mandarin, does that come from that girlfriend or was it before that?
But, honestly, that came just naturally from that relationship in the past because she was Taiwanese and it just came from her culture. So um, I think it just kind of happened sort of organically, and I kind of just permeated to learning it as a result of being together. And I suppose also, like I mentioned, because her mom was a teacher of the language, then it was either even further emphasized that it might be a good idea to try to improve at it and learn it. I mean, it's like, for instance, if she was a Portuguese speaker and her mom happened to be a Portuguese teacher, then
I mean,
it would
that's
have
kind of
been a
convenient. I
story.
mean, how often does
Yeah,
that happen where
yeah,
your
it's
partner's
great.
parent is a language teacher?
Yeah. This was a while ago too. I should mention this is many years back. So, yeah, but that's where I first got my start on it. And actually, I don't know if you guys know about this, but there's something called Preply online where you can find cheap lessons for language. And during the COVID time period, I studied with a teacher out of China, and it was just $7 an hour
That's
to have a
amazing.
lesson. And then he raised it later, and I just kept on paying him whatever he wanted because he was such a great guy, and I really enjoyed doing that with him. But yeah, that was a really excellent resource that I didn't even know existed. But yeah, you just go online and you can do a lesson, whatever language you want. There's people who teach all across the world with that. So
Man, I spent a lot of time with Duolingo learning
yeah,
different languages, and it's great. They say that by the time you finish a language on Duolingo, it's the equivalent of, I don't know, a university course or is something pretty major. But man, if you
oh,
can cheaply get actual lessons online from somebody that speaks the language, that's even better.
yeah. Now, bro, there's AI tools that are even more effective, apparently, where you can just have full-on conversations and constantly converse with a robot, essentially, and it's very coherent, though. It's not like speaking to you in digitized segments. It's like a fully, anyway, that's a
That's
whole other,
wild.
yeah.
It's widely known that Mandarin is perhaps the hardest language to learn. Did you find that to be true? My understanding is you don't have a reference. Like I speak English and French, so with French it's like Spanish isn't that hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes some words in Italian or Portuguese sound kind of French, so you have a
Yeah.
reference point, kind of a foundation to build off of. But in Mandarin it's mostly like symbols, I think.
Yeah, and I should mention and qualify my previous statement that I'm not able to read or write at all. There is a phonetic system of learning called Pinyin. It's like a romanization of their language that uses English letters essentially, and a phonetic system kind of similar to like accent aigu and all that stuff you put on. It's like they have a way for you to pronounce these words correctly without because the actual, as you mentioned, the character system in China is very it's ancient, and it actually initially started from pictograms, from actually a symbol was just what it was, and then it graduated to kind of just being stemming from that. So some of the characters will resemble the actual object that they're referring to, and other ones have absolutely nothing to do with whatever object it is. It's not like if you're dealing with an apple, the symbol looks like an apple. It's not like that. But initially, it was that way, or at least was taught to me that it was. I didn't even bother learning that. I'm just very good with like hearing and sort of just jumping in there and getting. And so I used that system, but I did. When I was at University of Toronto for music, I studied jazz there. I just took the Mandarin class first year. They didn't even let me in it because I needed to be a major, Chinese studies major. But I just sat there and I bought all the books for all 4 years, and I listened to the tape. We still had tapes at that period of time. I just listened to the tapes in my car. And yeah, every day when I was driving to school, I just listened. I was very nerdy, man. I did that, and I also had a metronome in order to improve my time because it's so important to have a strong rhythmic grounding when you're playing jazz. So I would listen to my metronome at 40 beats per minute, and I would listen to these the Mandarin tapes. So
Well, at
yeah,
least your nerdiness goes towards something productive that you can actually use in your life and your career.
I suppose so. I don't know if I would do all that now. It seems like it's too much stuff to do,
Yeah, I don't know if you put that on your dating bio, but it's good. It's good to have.
Exactly,
I
exactly.
uh, I wanted to kick off this interview powerfully. So I reached out to another world-class Canadian musician, and he's helping me out here. So I got some kind words sent in from Mike Sleeth, the drummer for international pop star Shawn Mendes. So Mike says, "Can you just tell Mark that he's an absolute legend, an all-around beast of a musician?" So short and sweet from Mike.
Oh my God, that's so nice of him to say because he's a beast himself,
It's
and
quite
he's
the
uh, he's a
drummer.
great he's a great guy. He's an amazing drummer, and that's so nice of him to say. Actually I know my artist that I produce a lot of music for. I've been doing it for her music for years now. Her name's Megan DeLima, and she's the background singer and extra guitar player for Shawn Mendes. And I'm also really good buddies with Zubin, who's Sean's musical director. And so, yeah, when Megan went in that group, I recently saw them. I think they're actually here in LA right now. But yeah, they came and I hung out with those guys for a little bit. So nice to see Mike and Zubin and them, and yeah, and of course Megan. So that's really cool. I appreciate him saying that. Yeah.
That's quite the gig to have, eh? Just in the band with one of the biggest stars on the planet.
I know. And also, Sean is such a nice guy. I hung with him years ago. Actually, when Rude was like a number one song, we did numerous events together. We did some Jingle Ball performances in America together and a couple other performances. And
That
a
would
guy
be
named,
before he blew up, right? He's a Kitchener boy, right?
yeah, he had actually already started blowing up at that
That
point.
long ago. Wow.
Yeah, he had, I think, one single that was already doing well
Life
for
of the
him.
Party, I think, was what blew him up.
Maybe it was the second one he did.
Okay.
Um, can't remember right now, but this is a while back. Yeah, and his day-to-day guy named Corey ended up working for my manager at the time named Charles. So yeah, yeah, it's just we he's super nice. Sean is a super nice guy.
That's awesome. So I like to share with our listeners how the guests and I know each other, just to show the importance of networking, of fostering relationships, building community. We just talked about all the connections here between all the Toronto people. So in our case, we've actually been friends on Facebook since before your Magic's major label debut album came out. So we've been friends since 2014 on Facebook. Haven't talked that much, but since I started the podcast almost 5 years ago, I've had your name on the top of the the list of potential future guests that I'm excited to talk to. So I'm excited to talk to you today, and
Talk to you, man.
I'm grateful to be sitting across from you digitally here.
I'm grateful to be sitting across from you digitally too, man. I appreciate you asking me to do it.
You're very welcome. So,
Yeah.
we're doing a full 2 hour deep dive. We're going to cover
Oh
your
wow.
life, your
Oh,
career. We're going to
yeah.
cover your discography. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Where did this love of music come from? Is there an earliest musical memory that stands out to you as maybe the first time that music really meant something?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a good question, man. I honestly, for me, music has been there right from the very beginning. I was super lucky in the sense that my family's quite musical. My dad is a guitar player, and he played in some Italian wedding bands. And my uncle Chuck is actually a professional guitar player. Like that's what he did for his, his career. So I had a really good foundation early on for just, proof of concept. Like, oh, here is something that's, good. They did. Everyone sort of for a period of time tried to dissuade me from going to music full time, but they quickly saw that I was just headed on that trajectory anyway, and it was kind of futile to convince me out of it. But yeah, I started singing when I was really, really young. I was always singing. I started piano lessons when I was 6 years old, and my parents were actually quite strict with me with the piano. Like I was forced to practice, which I actually appreciate now. At the time, it was I was arguing a lot, and I remember kind of feeling, oh, okay. But I had to practice every day. They were very like militant about it, and if I didn't, there would be a big argument. But I did, and I really appreciated that they were that kind of vehement in their approach to get me to focus on it because otherwise I don't think I would have made much development. So yeah, I practiced really hard on the piano and I started guitar, I guess 13. I started picking it up when I was 11, but by 13 I was just full on guitar nerd, like I had my guitar on me hours and hours a day. My friends would still come over and hang out. I had like a close group of buddies or whatever, and we all hung out, but I'd always have my guitar on me. And yeah, I was that guy in high school that just always had a guitar. I remember going to parties and people would be like, dude, where's your guitar?
Did you have it on your back like a gunslinger?
It's just, I don't know what it, yeah, that's funny, man. I should have, I didn't really do the whole throw it behind my back and that, diagonal thing. But I just always had it on me. I didn't have it like walking around school. I wasn't even allowed to do that. But I just, as soon as I got home, I'd just be playing. And I think I have that advice for like any guitar students I've had over the years. It's uh it's important to do pointed practice, but also it's the kind of instrument that you could be practicing while you're watching TV or Netflix or even scrolling on the phone. I think it's a good idea just to always have it on you. And yeah, stretch though. You don't want to have too many
It's a
you
very
know,
physical instrument.
it is in the sense that it's constantly tugging on your back in the same way. So if you're, have any predisposition to spinal injury or if you have scoliosis or anything that's, disc issues and such, I don't, luckily. I have a little bit of scoliosis, but yeah, you got to just kind of, do some yoga, stretch it out, or else you might have some acquired musician type injuries that occur over a long period of time. Yeah.
Your advice to young guitarists that they should have that guitar with them at all times and play as much as you can. When I was 13, my final semester in school was I had a co-op at Distortion Studios in Ottawa. So this was originally built for Alanis Morissette. And when I was there, there was a manager at the time, Kirk, and he asked me like, "Hey, what do you want to do with your life when you grow up?" I want to be a professional musician. I'm a guitarist. He's like, "Oh, that's great. Like, how often do you play every day?" I was like, "Oh, maybe an hour a day." And I'm thinking like, that's pretty good. And he goes, "Okay, let me get this straight. Anyone else that's a professional is working 8 hours a day, and you think you can just play guitar 1 hour a day and you're going to be a professional?" And it really opened my eyes that like maybe I was just wishing upon a career versus actually taking it into my own hands, like you said, for your students.
I wouldn't beat yourself up about that in the sense that I don't think you were wishing for it. I think it's just very normal initially, especially as you're younger. You don't sometimes realize the amount of time that it takes to really put into something of that sort. And also, there's depending on the style of music, it's not always necessary. Let's face it, you know. And I don't mean that from an elitist sense, because I'm in terms of like what genres are good or not. I mean, that's totally subjective. I love all types of music. I'm just saying, just for the purpose of this particular discussion, let's say you're trying to play violin, first violin in a symphonic setting, that requires your aptitude to be quite high and for you to be sort of demonstrative of that talent in a very concise way. If you want to play bass in a punk band, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying
That's
like,
true.
that's a different type of vibe, and it's you can do that just by being a cool dude or a cool girl, or whatever, just you just doing your thing, being good at it, having the energy for it. I'm not knocking the genre. I'm just saying like the amount of time that it takes. You don't necessarily need to practice 8 hours a day to tackle that particular, thing. So it's really is dependent on the what your goals are through music.
That's a good point. So you mentioned you started with piano, singing, guitar. So at what point did songwriting come in where you're actually writing your own songs? And then I think drums maybe a lot later you got interested in drums.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I play tons of drums and bass too. I love those instruments. I guess I can, yeah, I'll mention how those came along. But yeah, the songwriting thing for me came early too. It came very early on the piano. I would write my own songs. I remember even I went to camp one year. I think it was called Camp Wanakita or something like that. It was a Canadian camp. I think it was in Muskoka area. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I really enjoyed it. And I did a concert for everyone on piano, all the kids there, and I played my own music that I'd already written. So I had, again, I was like, what, like eight or something like that. So I'd already have, I had the desire to create my own music. What came from me later was lyrics. I did lyrics early on, as well. I mean, I started writing songs about 14 years old, but I didn't fully understand the concept of lyric writing for pop music. I mean, by pop, I mean just all genres of in the popular domain, not necessarily like the most poppy sounding of all records, which require a certain lyrical narrative that arguably is different from some other pop music. Yeah, so that skill to me came later. I really tried to dive into it. I think my mind initially was just to sing what felt good. And then I was reading a lot as a teenager, and then my lyrics were actually too complicated. I went the direction of just, it just didn't, because, in pop music, it's not necessarily about writing something that is so incredibly profound. I know people appear to have that be the case, when they discuss their music, but usually it's quite similar. It's like love gained or love lost lyrics, and it's always kind of basic, and it's something that's been done before, and it actually should be that way because when you find as songwriters, if you start going past that, you lose the listener. Like that, someone told me years ago this advice, which is kind of true, and they said that a really good pop song, you should be able to sing the hook back at um, just immediately after the first listen. So just one listen and it's an earworm and you already got it in your head, like, okay, I heard it one time and I got it. But that's not like a brilliant musician hearing it one time and they already got it in their head. That's just the average person out there that may or may not even enjoy music, hears it one time and it's in their head. So as you can imagine, from a lyrical perspective, that needs to be pretty basic in nature. Not basic as in bad. I don't mean that as it like it's not a pejorative thing. It's just, it has to be something that's somewhat concise and simple, or else they won't actually remember it. Yeah, and so early on songwriting for me, I did it, but I don't think my songs were very good. I liked what I was doing, but I don't think they were very good in terms of them actually being able to connect with people. Yeah, and I think that's kind of when I was 19, I released my first solo album. I guess I started it when I was 17, and it took me a while to get it all together. I started production early too. I had an ADAT when I was 16 years old. Those kind that take actually videotapes. They look like VHS tapes. It's crazy. Slightly souped up
It's funny
format.
how far technology has come now.
I know. It's crazy. We can do it all on our laptops now, but at the time, that's what it required. So I recorded it all on that, and then I mixed it at my friend's studio. And yeah, those songs that I did, their lyrics are too complicated. You know, when I hear it now, I'm upset about two things. Not upset. I'm still proud of what I did, but I'm like, I needed to execute the vocals even better. I was nerdy about that too, and I practiced a lot, but I needed to do it even better. And I needed to write more concise, simple lyrics that resonate with people. That's the thing.
See, I find
Yeah.
it fascinating hearing you talk about your songwriting process because, we're a long ways away in the timeline from talking about Magic and all the success with the band. But, I've listened to the entire discography many, many times, and I had listened to it far before preparing for this interview. I've been a fan since the start.
Oh,
And
okay.
kind of the one thing that always jumped out to me about Magic is you guys write undeniable choruses. Like when it gets to the chorus, to me, your songs sound like hit choruses more than any song I've heard. As soon as I hear a Magic chorus, I go, that's a hit. And it's funny because you just mentioned that the main thing is can the average person sing back the hook after one listen? And I would say that all the Magic singles, it's earworm in your head the moment you hear it, can't get it out. So I feel like you mastered that over the years leading into being with Magic. And in Magic, you have other hit songwriters as well. So it's almost like you guys combine superpowers for this group.
We definitely try to, bro, and I appreciate that. For thank you for saying that. Definitely try to keep that in mind. Yeah, well, for Rude, I actually wrote the chorus of Rude. I wrote the "Why You Gotta Be So Rude" part, so I'm proud of that. Like, cause on some of the songs, I didn't really have anything to do with the lyrics. I'm just totally honest with you. Nasri handled the majority of that, but on that particular song, I wrote the "Why You Gotta Be So Rude," and I feel proud of that in terms of like certainly not my crowning achievement in as far as wow, that's so amazing, so profound, but I'm happy because it was the right lyric for the vibe of that song and it resonated with people. So that's what makes because I think my skill set these days is more centered around more slightly more complicated things than that. Lyric writing is its own art. It's different, and you kind of have to. It's got to be simple and basic, but you try to say the same things over and over again in slightly different ways. And also, here's another hack: you just say the same thing over again, and don't even say it in a different way, and just let go of your ego, let go of the part of yourself that doesn't want to copy someone else. Like some songs come out and it's literally the exact same title as a previous hit from before. Sometimes you can't get away with it. In certain examples, it would be ridiculous. Like I can't tell you, oh, I'm so excited to release my next single, Stairway to Heaven. You'd be like, like
Yeah,
that.
some
No,
feel kind
right?
of self-copywritten.
Yeah, but if you're like, my next single, As Long as You Love Me, you know,
Yeah.
which my buddy Nas did. He wrote that song for Justin Bieber, but that was also a song for the Backstreet Boys. That was one of their biggest hits. So just because a song can be called something doesn't mean it can't be called the same thing again. You know what I mean? It's like you got to let go of the that aspect because initially I was thinking, well, I can't do that. My early self in pop music was too analytical. I thought about things, I heard this riff or I heard this lyric. I was like, oh, that sounds too much like this, so I can't do it. If one thing I've learned now over the years is that if it reminds you of something else without you running into some sort of publishing conflict, or it's so similar, in fact, that there's a copyright issue, it's good for you to intimate the melody or lyric of something else that's already in existence that's become income earning because it's almost like a projection indicator for your own thing. Like these good ideas don't really die quickly. You know, they stay on. So yeah, I mean, take that for what it is. I'm not recommending that people just steal other people's music. That's not the point of this. It's just more, if it makes you think about something else, that's okay.
I I'm a big John Mayer fan, and I remember him talking about songwriting, and he says one of his tricks is he'll go to a song he loves and he'll take the melody of the chorus of that hit song and he'll make his own song using that chorus melody for his verse. So it's not he's not copying a chorus and a chorus. It's suddenly there's this cool melody in a verse that is normally used in a chorus or reverse. He'll there'll be a really melodic verse and then he'll use that in a chorus of one of his songs but come up with something very different for the other part.
That's great. I haven't heard him say that. That's a really great advice though, and I think that's totally in keeping with what we're talking about. So yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. I can't take credit for that at all, but when you were really getting into your instruments for the first time, so let's say 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, 6 years old, somewhere in there,
Yeah.
did you have any musical heroes that you looked to that were at the pinnacle of their instrument where you thought, man, if I really practice, I could be like that person? So, guitar, everyone thinks of the
Oh
same
yeah.
people, but maybe piano, something different or
Oh, of
not sure.
course. Oh, of course, of course. Yeah, and I mean, I still do. I got my heroes, always striving to sound as great as the legends. Some heroes are unsung. People don't even know about them. There's tons of crazy, amazing jazz musicians that live in New York City that you've never heard of. There's a For me, for guitar, it was initially like and still like Jimi Hendrix. Um, I loved Eric Johnson when I was younger. Really loved his tone and his phrasing. Then I got just basically so obsessed with R&B, gospel, and soul, which is still my passions these days. Which I hope it doesn't come off as some sort of like cultural appropriation type thing, but I just like enjoy that style of playing a lot. And I got lucky to play in some gospel bands. Actually, when I was back in Toronto, I played in a gospel group called Divine Worship, and I learned more doing that than I did with many, many other pursuits. I think that's sort of like the cheat code for really getting good at your instrument is the mentorship and of that style and that community. Because community is a great way to put it. Yeah, you can see it on drums, especially, man. Like if let's say you're a church drummer and then you practiced like and through that and you had the mentorship of that and then you went to like maybe jazz school too and then you're just unstoppable. You become an unstoppable musician. Um, so yeah, okay. So back to the heroes on the various instruments, though. The guitar was with Jimmy. I loved Eric Johnson. I really loved Stevie Ray Vaughan. Then I got into tons of jazz stuff. So I was big into Wes Montgomery. I really loved this gypsy jazz guitar player who's sort of like stemmed from Django Reinhardt's legacy named Borelli Legrand. I really liked his playing a lot. I still do. He's a virtuoso. Really enjoy he's very savage with it. He plays like I like people who play like their life depends on it. Like you
Some of
could
them,
tell.
their life probably did depend on it.
Yeah, seriously, man. Like their self-worth is so tied into how good they sound. You can see there's a little bit of neuroticism there and their how good they become at it. That to me is inspiring. I don't think it's necessarily healthy, of course, from like a mental health perspective. It's probably not the right way to approach life through the lens of your instrument. But in terms of getting good at your instrument, it's very helpful. So those were some big influences on me for guitar. And there's obviously so many more. I really on piano, my hero on piano still today is Brad Meldau. I love Brad Meldau's playing, but I love tons of other people's playing too. Like I love tons of gospel keyboardists and lots of like I mean I guess I was really influenced by Bud Powell from a jazz perspective. My friend years ago told me, man, you got to learn how to play bebop like Bud Powell on the piano. If you don't, you're gonna suck. And he's right. He's right. And now I'm not to say that with disdain to anyone else who feels like they're good at piano that haven't checked out Bud Powell, because it's not necessarily that quite so in a box like that. But it was good advice for me, the style of music I was trying to play, because it was all the bebop vocabulary on piano. He was kind of like the Charlie Parker for saxophone on piano. Like, oh, if you want to play sax and you've never heard Charlie Parker play before, how are you supposed to? Yeah, it's kind of like that. that thing. You kind of have to check it out. So I really did practice a lot of Bud Powell, and these days I love Robert Glasper's playing. I think he's a great example of someone who has a lot of like R&B and soul in his playing, but then also he's got the jazz vocabulary, you know. He's not like a crazy virtuoso, like in the sense that he's like just super technical, right? He is technical. He is a great player, but he's not like I don't think that's even his emphasis to just, shred up on the piano, um, like some people do, right? Yeah, I could keep on going, but yeah, he's a huge influence on me though. I love Robert Glasper's playing, and I try to, do my own thing that's just a combination of everyone I've ever loved. I know I'm missing a lot of people. Oh, I studied a lot of classical piano. And that was actually really good for me. I don't know what the system is in every country, but being Canadian, we had the RCM and the Royal Conservatory of Music. That was really helpful for me. I did all the way up to ARCT on piano, and I don't think it's necessary for everyone. I'm not trying to say that everyone has to do that, but that was really helpful from a piano perspective. No, I did study some classical guitar too, and I have to say that is super amazing as well. But the classical guitar to the style of guitar that I play, there's a divide there in the sense that on a classical guitar, it's nylon strings. You put it on your left leg, and your left leg is hoisted up on a stool. You grow your nails out so that you can play with a particular tone. And it's a beautiful style of music, and it's wonderful. But then now you're playing jazz, you're playing soul, gospel, R&B, or some rock and blues. You're on an electric guitar, usually with a pick, you're standing up. It's different. It's like a totally different thing. Whereas on piano, when you practice that classical piano technique, that is immediately transferable to all genres of piano. You don't need to then switch anything around. So I think that's why I got especially quite a bit of benefit from doing the classical piano and then doing jazz with it. It really helped my technique out a lot so that I can, it's because really it's just about being able to execute ideas. If you have a thought in your head, how do I play it? It should come out. You shouldn't be hindered by the technique. Like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't because my fingers just don't go to these places fast enough. Sorry, I'm rambling on so much, but that's kind of like a long-winded answer to that.
And how much did going to university for music really help you grow as a musician?
It helped a lot. It helped a lot. I had great teachers there. My first guitar teacher in university was Roy Patterson, and he was wonderful. And then my next guitar teacher, who became like a super super close friend of mine, and a big mentor, was David Occhipinti, and he helped me a ton. I mean, I should say all the guitar instruction I've received over the years helped me a ton, but especially like he really unlocked things for me. His knowledge of the instrument is so deep. Um, it's just I can't even get started on just how connected he is to the instrument and how much he understands it. So a lot of the things he told me to practice were almost even more conceptual in nature than they were guitaristic, and that was really helpful. He got me doing a bunch of stuff that I hadn't considered before, and he still does. I just saw him in Christmas time when I went back to Toronto to visit my family and stuff. I saw him too, and I still gives me lessons. When I hang out with him, he'll show me very interesting things that, um, yeah, like if I had a guitar here, I'd show you. There's like a lot of string skipping exercises, where you take stuff that you already have, shapes, but then you deliberately skip strings in order to execute angular, interesting sounding lines that you wouldn't really regularly come up with unless you were doing this targeted approach to practicing them. So yeah, university was good, and also the composition classes were excellent. My first year at university was in classical piano. It wasn't even in jazz guitar, and I went to York, and I had a teacher named Antonin Kobalek who has since passed away. But oh, he was so great. I loved that guy. Um, he was really, really helpful he's so emotive on the piano. That's when I went from just like trying to learn the song. Of course, you understand the importance of emotion. The composers would write it right on the paper, like, they would like dolce or whatever, like they'll tell you to do it like sweetly in a certain spot. But you didn't really appreciate it. But when I saw him play, he basically the kind of guy who puts you to tears with his playing. because it was just so emotional. He took you on a journey. That was helpful for me because I saw this is powerful. Your playing can be so powerful that it brings people to tears. And he was that guy. He was that guy. And yeah, I was lucky to study for him with him. And I had another amazing piano teacher named James Tweedy. I think he's still teaching for anyone who lives in the North York area in Toronto. He's an amazing classical piano teacher. He he took my technique way past where it was and really improved it. He's an excellent, excellent piano teacher. He's super emotive as well, very deep knowledge of the instrument. Yeah, I think I've heard other people's perspectives on post-secondary education for music, and I understand where they're coming from. Some people feel like, just to address this idea, because I'm sure some people do feel this way. I don't want to make anyone feel like they have to go to school for music. You can still be a great musician, you can be a great singer, you can be a great composer. You don't have to go to jazz school or study classical music, or that you don't have to do that. It just is one way of doing it. And personally, I found it beneficial and helpful, but it's not meant to be like, oh, I'm so great because I did that. I don't feel that way at all, actually. Like Miles Davis went to university, I think, for 1 year. He went to Juilliard for classical trumpet, and then he dropped out and he was just crushing it. John Coltrane never went to university for music. Charlie Parker never went to university for music, to my knowledge. These guys are the goats. So you don't have to go to school for music, but should you decide to do that, it's a great resource because you're going to meet other people there that also want to do music. Your faculty members are excellent players and great instructors that are going to help you dive into your instrument. Sometimes what can end up occurring, as you can imagine and anticipate, is there's quite a bit of competition, and you may or may not fall out of love with the thing that you went in there for. I saw that happen to some people who went in there for jazz and they loved jazz, and by the time they left the program and they're like, I never want to play jazz again. I didn't really understand it because I just maintained my love and obsession of the music as well as other musics. But oh, sorry, I shouldn't say music's not really a pluralizable word, is it? I'm
It
gonna just
is
make up
now. It is now.
a
Yeah.
word.
You said it. It's official.
Like,
It sounded kind
official.
of fancy, actually.
That sounded fancy. That's great. Yeah, I'm just rambling on, but you know what I'm saying, right, bro? It's one of those things like you don't have to go. Should you go? It's great. I my friend did tell me years ago that you all sound the same when you leave the programs, and I can see that to a certain extent because there's not the same, but okay, let's say you go to Berkeley for guitar. There's specific resources that you have to do. Like you have to go through a syllabus that involves achieving a specific set of exercises. So you could make the point that if you got all these guitar players and all these instrumentalists doing the same exercises, they're going to kind of be somewhat similar in nature when it's all said and done. But I think actually what you'll find is that's not necessarily the case. There's so much individuality and personality that comes out in people's playing that even though they might be practicing the same things, it doesn't mean they all like we all learn the major scale, and just because you've learned the major scale on your instrument doesn't mean you you sound the same. You organize those notes differently when you're trying to express yourself. So yeah, I don't think they should be worried about just sounding like a cookie cutter version of another musician because like whether you go to school for it or not, you're probably going to be confronted with similar musical information that you're going to have to assimilate.
Well, you took what you learned at university, all those lessons, and you're able to use that. Starting in 2007, you became a part of Justin Nozuka's band. You were with him for about 5 years. Man,
Oh,
that kid is so talented. Even as a teenager, his brother George is so talented.
oh.
And I have some stories about Justin Nozuka, but maybe you can talk about what opportunities presented themselves being a part of his crew.
Oh, yeah. Well, absolutely, I can. And one thing, the I got a lot out of playing with Justin, but I think the best thing, at least for my own development, was because he's such a ridiculously good singer. I developed so much as a singer as well. I'd always sang R&B, but I didn't sing it as well as him, you know? And hearing him singing with him, I improved so much as a singer because then I would just practice all his licks, all his ideas. I'm a sponge. So yeah, he's an incredible talent. He's an incredible singer. And I got a lot from that. Just us singing together. We literally just played a lot of. I actually, even though Magic sort of was my most successful project that I've been a part of, I toured a lot more with Justin than I did with Magic. We toured 10 months, 9, 10 months out of the year for 5 years straight. We were all across Europe, all across North America. We didn't go to Latin America with that project. We did a lot with Magic. We did go to Japan with Justin because he's half Japanese, and we did a couple of tours there. I played Fuji Rock Festival with him, and we did a radio promo tour there. Yeah, and we just did a ton of music. He's kind of shares my obsession, and we were just constantly sing and play music together.
And as big as he was in Canada, he was even bigger in Europe, I think, wasn't he? Like he
It's
had
actually,
like
yeah,
platinum or bigger over there.
yeah, his biggest audience was France.
Okay.
Yeah, with After Tonight. After Tonight became a top 10, I don't think it was a number one, but it was a top 10 radio record in France. So those few years there, we went to France so many times. I was so lucky. And we would stay there for nice chunks of time too. I'd stay at a nice, beautiful hotel in Paris for a few weeks, just playing acoustic guitar and singing in the hotel room. And then the only job is we play a show every now and then, or we do some radio promo. And the rest of the time we're writing music and hanging out. So yeah, it was a pleasure to perform music with him. And yeah, the whole thing was great. The only reason I really moved on in the end, and I know it's kind of weird to talk about it, but and it's not his fault at all. He's a beautiful guy. It was just money. It's just money. I needed to make more money. And in that project, I was always just a side man. And I guess you could say to a certain extent that's what I was in Magic too, being the guitar player as opposed to the lead singer. Or I know people look at things that way, but I never really felt like a side man because like it just didn't really feel that way to me. But I understand the audience's like perception of music is kind of you know different from how the musicians feel themselves. But yeah, with Justin's in particular, it was a solo artist, and I was an accompanist for him, and I just couldn't make enough money doing that, so I had to move on to other things. And it was actually his manager, one of his managers, Rob Lanny at the time, who told me, he said, "Man, you got to start writing music. You got to get into publishing. You got to own your own assets. You got to write more and more and more and more music." And I really took it seriously from him. It's like I mentioned to you before, I got started writing music and producing at home, but I always did it just because I was so passionate about it. I never thought, oh, I need to write hits. I need to write income earning hit songs that make me money. Like that thought never even crossed my mind. But then when he told me to do it, then that was all I needed was that him saying, you gotta do that. Like, and I just did it. I went full throttle into that.
Well, Rob and Arnold Lanny at Coalition Music, I mean, the success that those guys have had, I mean, they're kind of the origin story for all these massive Canadian bands. So to hear them say something, you should probably listen.
Oh, absolutely. It was Eric Lawrence and Rob the and I met Arnold 2 years later. I met him here in LA. He's such a nice guy. I see your Our Lady piece. Is that Our Lady piece? Yeah. And he
Yeah,
produced
so
all that stuff.
Yeah, so these are all guests that I've had on the podcast. So it's my
Yeah.
favorite albums from guests on the podcast. And when I had Jeremy, when I had Jeremy, former drummer for Our Lady Peace on,
Jeremy Tiger.
yeah, I actually was able to get a quote from Arnold Lanny to
Yeah.
share, talking about the recording process with them and how much of a
Yeah.
joy it was and all those things. I was going to say that Justin Ozuka's debut album, Holly, I love
Yeah.
that album so much when it came out. I've
Me
never done
too.
this before. I bought 3 extra copies and put them in my family's stockings for Christmas. I've never done that with another
Wow.
album. So,
Wow.
so I go way back to the debut of Justin Ozuka being a fan as well.
Man, I agree with you. I had nothing to do with that album. I joined the band after it was done, but that album was amazing. And Yeah, also shout out to my buddy Bill Bell, who absolutely crushed the production on that album. Bill is another amazing musician, and he's an amazing producer. I learned a lot from Bill too, and he really helped Justin big time early on, because that sound on that first album is I think he just got it. They just got it perfect to get
Just
together.
warm, just like a
Yeah, they didn't even
warm, natural sounding.
an acoustic. It's hard to do that. Some people's like that was kind of during the acoustic soul genre when that was still a thing, but he really nailed that. And a lot of people have trouble doing that, but they nailed that. So yeah, he crushed it. Really crushed it.
So there's a few times where we might have crossed paths without knowing each other, and one of them is there was a year where I worked at the Junos, and my job was to greet the talent as they arrived at the
Oh,
arena, bring them to their backstage hangout area, and then bring them to the stage when they're supposed to perform. And I it was one of the early years with Justin Nozuka where I brought his whole crew. It was in an arena, and his hangout spot was like out in the open. Normally the concession area, massive open glass room, and there was just couches in the middle, and he was sitting on the couch with bandmates, and they just had acoustic guitars, and they were warming up, I think, to eventually go and perform. So I think Bruce Nickel, who I've gone to know since then, was probably there. You might have been there. So just a random memory that came to
yeah,
me.
Bruce, yeah. Um, I'm sure I was there. I
Were you
just,
ever at a Juno Award ceremony with
I
Justin
don't.
Nozuka?
Yeah, I think so. I believe so. Yes, yes, I was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in Toronto.
yeah, I was.
Yeah, so
I
that's the
forgot about
first
that
time we
actually.
were in the same vicinity without knowing each other. I actually played at an open mic in Toronto, and I'm there, I'm hanging out, I'm meeting people, I perform, and then they go, "Oh, we have Justin Nozuka and George Nozuka in the crowd. Guys, do you want to come up?" And they come up, so I'm just sitting there with like 40 people, and the two brothers go up and they perform, and I mean, what a treat that is.
That's so cool. I love that. Yeah, I love George too. I produced a lot of songs for George. I'm not sure if I mentioned that to you, yeah, but yeah, I did a lot of songs for him. Like, I don't know, some like 10 songs I produced for him. Yep, he's my good buddy, and he's a talented dude himself. A wonderful, wonderful guy, and just super great singer too. Like yeah, love that guy.
And to keep showing how the Canadian music industry is so small, how everyone is connected, the host of that open mic sent in some kind words. So this was, if you remember, the Free Fall Sunday open mics at Supermarket in Toronto. So Tony Rabelau,
Yeah, hosting the band.
drummer Joy Drop, now drummer Bedouin Soundclash,
I love Tony.
Tony sent in some kind words, and he must like you because he wrote a lot. So this is what he said. He says, "Hey Mark, it's been a while. I hope you're doing well. I know a lot of musicians that are really talented in one area, but Mark is one of those rare musicians that's kind of a freak of nature that's really good at everything. He's an exceptional guitar player. He's an exceptional piano player, great writer, great vocalist, and just an all around great guy. So, Joel, you picked a good one to interview. Mark, I love what you do. You've always impressed me with your musical skill and your musicality. You've really got something special there, brother. Mad respect. I look forward to seeing more magic and more of what you do. Cheers. Be well, gentlemen. Please say hello to your magic brothers for me." So that's from Tony.
Oh my God, that's so sweet. I love that guy. He's super talented himself. I'm so flattered with these. That's nice of you to do that, where you ask people to say something. And wow, like I was not expecting to hear that. I love Tony and I love his playing, and he's awesome. And everything he said about me, I could say about him. So that's so sweet that he said that. That's really cool. Yeah, I loved going. Even before I met him, he didn't even know me yet. I used to go watch him play a lot. And my buddy Ben is also the bass player Magic is also really good friends with Tony. Tony's legendary. So like yeah, I've seen him play it like so many times over the years, and he's always just crushed it. He's super musical, man. And yeah, that was it. That jam he hosted. Did he still host that jam? Because that jam was
Yeah,
great.
so I think it moved from Supermarket to a different venue after the pandemic, but it's still the legendary, like it's the longest running open mic. Everyone goes.
Oh,
It's such a great place to perform to a crowd that cares and to network with great musicians.
Seriously, I know so many people that got their start there, like excellent musicians, like JP Sachs was always at that jam, and my buddy TJ Whitelaw, the guitar player, amazing guitar player, used to go there a lot too. I remember these guys, like Tony gave these guys a
A feature set?
platform, yeah, to meet each other and just to, um, yeah, that's so great. I really appreciate him saying that. That's sweet.
I'm fortunate that Bedouin Soundclash is super popular in Ottawa, so they come
Yeah.
pretty frequently. So they were headlining the Dragon Boat Festival here a few summers ago. So I was able to go out and say hi and take a picture and hang out with him a little bit. So
Yeah,
it's
they're
good to
dope,
see
man.
Tony in Ottawa. They were here at the Bronson Center not long ago either.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's great.
So let's dive into Magic. How
Yeah.
did you meet the other members, and where did the idea of starting a band together come from?
Well, see, you already brought up the Nazuka brothers, right? So George was buddies with Nasri, and George introduced me to him. And they first time he came was when me and Justin and Alex, the former drummer of Magic, is my best buddy, and who else? And Anthony Lebdansky was playing bass. These guys are my brothers. Um, that's how I met Nas. He came to that show and he really liked it. He we talked afterwards. He was just saying he really enjoyed it. We became buddies. Then I started working in the studio a ton. That was when Rob gave me that advice to start writing, and I co-wrote the song Inner Ninja with Classified, and I did a whole bunch of other songs off that album.
That was a
And those
huge hit here in
Yeah,
Canada.
those were my first big cuts in Canada. Didn't know, and other places didn't know about him as much, but we did so well there, and I love him. Luke's an awesome guy, and he's super talented. We did worked on a lot of music together. So anyway, I was doing that, and I was doing a bunch of other stuff. Then I went down to LA. I took a trip, and I visited some friends, and I also got together with Nasri and Adam in the studio, and we wrote a song, and actually became a single for Chris Brown called "Don't Judge Me."
Wow, that's a good start.
Yeah, it's the please don't judge me and I won't judge you. It's that song. It's off the Fortune album. So we did that together, and that was like the first thing we did. And it became a Chris Brown single. So I was just so like, oh wow. And so the Nas and me, we had a great musical connection, and me and Adam as well. I'd actually met Adam years ago before in Toronto through an ex, and she, Adam and me were kind of already buddies. Well, we were buddies. I really and I love Adam. Altogether, we formed a kind of like a unit. And then Naz told me, "Hey, man, we should start a band." And I said, "Sure." And he's like, "Well, what kind of well, like, what's the vibe?" And we were thinking, like the Police, maybe like the Police, like not authentic reggae because we're not the right people to bring that to the world, but reggae inspired. And that was at a period of time that the song Locked Out of Heaven was on the radio, Bruno Mars' song. And if you recall, that's very influenced by the Police. It almost sounds just like a homage to the Police. So we started this band, and it actually got Justin Nozuka's band to be Magic's band. So I brought actually Anthony and Alex to LA because at that time we weren't playing with Justin anymore. And so I just moved the whole band to LA, and we started this new band. Now, and Anthony didn't want to end up working. He was touring with some other country artists, and he was really killing it and doing his own thing. And he's subsequently gone on to do some other amazing stuff. Like he started his own barber shop, and now he's working in the car industry. So he didn't want to stay in Magic, which was totally cool. He left, and then my buddy Ben Spivak, who was here in LA, was already coming by the house, and him and me were just kicking it and hanging and working on some music together. And it just sort of naturally fell in position because we didn't have a bass player, and Ben's an amazing bass player, and he was there, and it's just like he just slid right in perfectly. So there we go. We had Ben and Nasri, Alex, and me, and that was magic. And then the first song that we released was Rude, which is insane because it was just like a rocket ship that went just out of this galaxy. And I have to say, because he doesn't get credit enough for it, but Charles Chavez, Magic's first manager, who's still my buddy, that's why we had a hit out of Rude. A lot of people write a lot of good music, but that song was actually, a lot of people don't know this, but that song was online for I think 4 or 5 months, and it had a grand total of like 4,000 hits. Um, and then Charles took it based on someone else's recommendation. Another one of his artists who heard the song and said, "Oh, this is a really good record. You should check it out, Charles." Charles heard it, and then he signed us to Sony through his Latium company. And then he promoted the hell out of the song. Like he just pushed it forward in a way that I have not ever seen repeated. I've tried to do it with other things. The way he moved to the industry was pretty amazing. Like just from a business perspective, he really knows what he's doing. He was a radio guy himself, and he had tons of connections, so he was able to leverage his contacts to push the song forward. This is back. Keep in mind, 2013, 14 is before Spotify served as the primary projection indicator for radio success. And now TikTok, right? Like, for instance, you can't go to radio. The radio's kind of not dying, but it's sort of dying, depending on who you talk to. But you just can't go there, even if your buddy's a radio program director, and be like, "Yeah, I got a hit song for you. You better play this one. This is a real smash. This is a smangarang of a song." They don't. It's not. That's not how it works. You look, is the artist viable? Like, what are their TikTok numbers like? How is the song streaming? If the song's been out for a year and nobody's listening to it on Spotify, they're not going to put it on high rotation at radio. It just didn't work that way. However, when Charles was there with his contacts and him pushing it forward, they absolutely did play it based on his recommendation, and then people loved it. And then it had its own, what's it called, naturally occurring snowball effect, right? Which is what you always want to see. Yeah, you pay for it initially, you invest in it, you push it forward. Sometimes, mind you, also with shady means. Not saying that I'm privy to this specifically, but I know how the industry works. Payola has been the vibe for radio for many years,
That's
right?
back to the Pink Floyd days. That was apparently the biggest payola in music history was to get the Pink Floyd albums played.
I bet, brother. And even before that, like they say right from the beginning of it, it was mob money, it was gang money, it was everybody, that's how you did it, right? It's sort of kind of upsetting, but it's never been a meritocracy. I don't really like that term, but because it's just now politicized. But you know what I'm saying? It's not like your song succeeds because it's so good. That's one defining or determining element of it, but there's also a whole other aspect of that
You
that's
need
not
the
so.
machine behind it as
Oh, you
well.
need absolutely need the machine behind you. Yeah, totally. And the same is true today, even though they say that it's not. It's like, oh well, you can't pay curators who work at these companies at DSPs to put your song on playlists, but of course you can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or you take them out to, you give
yeah,
them $500 Leaf tickets. Like there's ways around
yeah,
actually
exactly,
doing
exactly.
payola with
Yeah,
cash.
correct,
Was
correct.
there ever a demo for Rude, or was the recorded version what we hear as the big single?
No, there was actually two demos. I produced them up actually. I did it, and then Adam took it, and then he came up with a brand new version, just kind of like inspired by that. Yeah, there's two versions of Rude, which it just has the hook intact. Um, and the verses were completely different. And the rhythmic feel was completely different. It was kind of like a hemiola thing. It was like here's the tempo. It was like doing this dun 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 dun. It was almost like um in house music or in like some EDM where you have like a constant pulse and then you have this dun against it, like a I don't know what that I think it's called a hemiola. That was sort of the vibe of the song. And then the chorus came in and it was like, why you gotta be so right? I was like so totally different. And even that part was slightly different too, mind you. It wasn't exactly so, but then they roll with it and they came up with this brand new version. I had nothing to do with I just wrote the why you gotta be so rude part. I had nothing to do with the story. So good on them, Adam and Nasri, for getting in the booth and hashing out that whole asking a father for his permission to marry the daughter, and him saying no and still pushing forward with it anyway. It's not autobiographical at all. It's just a fictional story. Yeah, and it's actually messed with my head a little bit over the years in terms of a couple things. One thing being defined by one singular piece of music. And I appreciate you. You asked me about so many different things in this interview here, but I've done a lot of interviews, and usually it's just like, yeah, you the guy who did the song "Rude." So my crowning achievement in life is the guy who goes spum 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 bum 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 spum. At the end, I'm just like, okay, like I'm so proud of that, and I don't want to bury that at all because, like, man, like I'm so lucky. The gratitude I feel but it's also just I kind of feel like it's connected to like the one hit wonder syndrome where you're just defined by this singular composition, and like that's you'll never get it again. So it's yeah, but still, we're so lucky to have it. People resonated with that song. Another thing is, I often hear when artists get interviewed and songwriters, just like you have to make sure that your music is authentic. Make sure it's coming from an authentic place and that it's real and authentic. And that couldn't be further from the truth about this song. The song is not authentic at all. It's based on a fictional lyrical perspective. It got reproduced 3 times. It's like it's just so different. That's why it's interesting because people's ideas, including my own, mind you, anyone who's watching this,
Hmm.
got to take everything with a grain of salt because there's really no maxims or ultimate truths for any of this. It's just kind of, you throw some paint on the wall and see what sticks, kind of thing.
What
Yeah.
what was the story behind the band name? I feel like you guys just a bunch of hit songwriters got together and the first thing you do songwriting before Magic exists is a Chris Brown hit, and then the first thing you do as a band is Rude, which is one of the biggest hits ever. I feel like you just got together and you made magic, and you're like, oh, we make magic, and
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that you feel like it was great. Like, I felt it was a magical time for me in terms of like these things connecting, and it's pretty special. Now, the name actually came because we didn't have a name yet, but we had a song called "Don't Kill the Magic" that became one of our singles, and it was actually Adam who said, "Hey, why don't you just guys just name your band Magic and put an exclamation mark at the end?" So that you don't run into copyright issues. Because as you can tell, like, if you type in magic online, you'll see like the Orlando Magic, you'll see whatever, this kind of Magic Johnson, like the magic or magicians doing like, tricks and such. It's such a generic word. And it's so used. I was surprised we were even able to get away with it. And I think it actually worked to our benefit initially, but it was also in a way potentially not a good idea because I mean, not to say not a good idea, it's still impactful. It's just the song Rude eclipsed the brand Magic Excel itself. I think it almost we'd be better off called the Rude Boys, or something like that. We'd be able to get more like I don't want to rename us to that. I'm just saying like that's how people, this song, oh you guys, the Rude. Like I would say I would be at the airport and I'd have my guitar and I'd be like, people are like, oh, who are you playing? What's going on? And I'm like, oh, I'm in a group called Magic. They're like, oh, we don't know that. I'm like, why you gotta be so rude? I'm like, oh my God, I love that song. I kill it. And then they're like, okay, then they know everything. You have to sing the hook to them. Then they know everything. So yeah, the name Magic came from just it being Adam suggested that we do that. Actually, recently Nasri got really sick for one of the shows. He wasn't able to make it. And so Ben and me and Carlos, our new drummer, just went together as a trio and we sang I sing like me and Ben sang all the whole set, right? And we called ourselves Magic with a question mark instead of an exclamation mark.
Is
And I
it
thought it was
still
pretty hilarious.
magic? Question mark.
Yeah, it's
I
Magic.
I
Yeah.
think I think magic is kind of a genius name because people are like, "Oh, hey, what are you listening to?" You're like, "Magic." Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just magic. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, man. I'm happy you think that.
Yeah, I think it's a good name. Um I so listening to the band's discography, your music is so fun and positive and uplifting. You guys knew the sound you wanted from the start, but did you know that you were also going for that kind of a positive vibe. Like listening to your albums is a fun experience, which you can't say for most music, essentially.
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I don't think
Like
anyone's
like
ever.
listening to music, like listening to Slayer can be enjoyable, but it's not a fun record. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally makes sense, brother. Yeah, and
Okay.
it's a great question. No one's ever actually asked us that before. But like, yeah, Magic is a bit of a PG brand, and it's like uplifting and positive. And I think, to be honest with you, it actually just came mostly due to the success of Rude specifically, because we tried to kind of stay in a lane, and that song's got it's PG, it's kind of like got that vibe, positive vibe to it. Even though I guess you could say from a lyrical perspective, it's sort of ignoring the wishes of the father or whatever. So I suppose it's, you're going against the grain a bit, but not in any really, you know, uh, bad way necessarily. So yeah, that's why, man. That's why it's positive.
Yeah, I feel like that song is positive because it's showing the true love of two people that they love each other so much that nothing is going to stand in the way of that. And like a gentleman, he's asking for permission from the father, but they're going to go through with it anyways. It's more of being polite and going
Formality.
through with the formality of it. But so I still see that as a positive song, even though there's this bit player, the father, that isn't the positivity in there. But
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. I agree. And I think that's kind of probably the main reason why the music is generally like PG 13 or whatever it's called. Like just like there's nothing with explicit in the lyrics, and there's really conceptually nothing that delves into anything that's contentious.
this episode has been brought to you by the Women in the Music Industry podcast. It's hosted by music producer Rob Wells, who has worked with global superstars like Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Selena Gomez. Through his 1 hour interviews, he shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in the music industry. Some of his notable guests include Morgan Lander of the multi-million selling metal band Kitty, and Pam Shane, who co-wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina Aguilera. If you're a fan of the Joel Martin Mastery podcast, you'll love the Women in the Music Industry podcast, which is available on all platforms. We've talked a little bit about Rude. So that's the first single off of the full length album. So
Yeah.
in 2014, you guys released the album Don't Kill the Magic. There were four singles. We talked about Rude. There was also Don't Kill the Magic, Let Your Hair Down, and No Way No. I just
Yeah.
want to give a few accolades. So the album went to number 6 on the Billboard Top 200 charts and number 5 in Canada, went gold in Mexico and platinum in Poland. So how good does it feel to be from Canada and to be seeing this success with the album sales in two other countries that maybe you're not super familiar with?
I didn't even know it went platinum in Poland. It's strangely enough, we've never even been there to play one single time,
I
which
think
is
you owe
crazy
it
to
to
me.
the Poland people
Yeah,
that
we
made your
owe
album go platinum to go play
absolutely, we
there.
should owe it to the Polish people to get over there and play these songs for them. Yeah, I got to mention it to the guys. I didn't know that. Yeah, um, yeah, I mean, man, it felt incredible. Obviously, we're so lucky to have this. There's only gratitude for people enjoying this project as much as they did. Um, I'm still a little shocked, to be honest with you. I always just assumed my music trajectory would include some songwriting and a ton of production and a lot of Motown cover gigs where I'm singing these songs and like like I didn't know I was gonna be like have a number one smangarang that everyone really loved and stuff. But I'm happy they did. And
So
yeah,
when this album came out in 2014, I went and picked it up. I played this album so much, I still play it to today. And I also went out and saw you guys at the Mod Club. You had a hometown show as
yeah,
Rude was taking off.
yep,
And my question is, do you remember the first time hearing your own song on the radio? So
yeah.
maybe you think of it as the Chris Brown song as a single, or maybe you think of it as maybe Rude was the first as a band hearing the song on the radio.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I've heard other songs, of course, that I've done on the radio even before Magic, several of them. But with Rude, I heard it for the first time in Australia when I was in Sydney. That's where we first got released, actually, in Australia, to that market. And I was actually just not to Australia, but I went to New Zealand to play One Love Music Festival in Tauranga, which was awesome, just a couple weeks ago. I love it there. And so. Yeah, that was the first time I heard it, man. It was in a taxi cab in Sydney, and I heard the song Rude on the radio. And I was just like, what the heck? This is so great. I remember even asking Adam, we were in the studio together. I was like, oh, because we saw it was rising the ARIA charts is like their Billboard charts in that part of the world. And I was like, oh, what happens if it hits number one on the ARIA charts? He said, well, man, that means it's going to go to other areas and they'll also be playing it there. So that's what happened. Like we yeah, that was also Charles too, by the way, mentioning this again. Charles he strategically began the promotion of the record in Australia
Why
because
Australia?
the reason being, when you got a summertime sounding record, which Rude was, people, I never thought about stuff this way, man, by the way. Like, I didn't like, oh, here's a summer record or here's a winter record, or like, I didn't think about things seasonally, right? But he did. And now I've found out that people do. And so that was a summer sounding record, and their summer is our winter. So if you go down there and you promote a record, and like things are a little more globalized now, right? So it's kind of like you're just dropping a record everywhere and it's kind of different. I'm saying at that period of time, you go there, you promote the heck out of a record. If you can show proof of concept and it serves as a projection indicator, then you got a great backstory to go to have it be a summer record in North America, right? Because it's hard to be like, oh, here's a smash, and they don't see that it's a smash. If it's already hit number one or number two or the topping the charts on the ARIA charts, you can go all the different radio markets, all the different territories around the world. You got her backstory showing that you have a good projection indicator. Now they're much more apt and likely to accept your song and put it on medium high rotation. That's what happened.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this, but my whole adult life, I check the Billboard charts every week, just as a music nerd. Like, what are the top singles, the top albums? I don't know why. That's just my jam. And way back when Rude was first released, I remember seeing it pop up at number 97 on the Billboard Hot 100. So it's the top 100 songs in the US, which basically means in the world, like everything
Yeah.
follows after that. So
Mhm.
I remember making a group message on Facebook with you and Nasri and being like, "Oh my God, you guys are number 97 on the Billboard Hot 100." And you guys replied like, "Oh my God, that's so cool." And every week I would update, like, you guys are number 70, you guys are number 40. I can't believe this. And I messaged you guys all the way to number one. And and the song went to number one Billboard Hot 100. Like, this is the mecca. Like, that's when someone says, oh, they have the number one song, period. It's they're talking about this chart, the Billboard Hot 100. You guys went all the way to number one, and it stayed there for 6 consecutive weeks. So for a month and a half, you have the biggest song in the world, essentially. I want
Crazy.
to know, what is your life like at the very peak of Rude being number one in the world? Like, no human being, almost no human being besides like Drake and Rihanna knows what that feels like. So for the rest of us peasants, can you share what
Oh,
that's
come on.
like?
Peasants, bro.
I'm
No, no.
asking as a joke. Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, come on. And also like yeah, I it was crazy, brother. I don't even know how much I'm supposed to expound on that in all honesty in this conduit here, but it's like everything that you can imagine was occurring. It was pretty bananas, bro. It was
Was it
bananas.
overwhelming? Was it like a dream come true?
It
Was
was
it too
overwhelming.
much? Was it
Uh,
exhausting? What was it?
it was amazing. It was a dream come true, yes. And it was also overwhelming and too much, if that makes sense. It was kind of like a paradox of in a sense that it was Yeah, it was absolutely a dream come true. But I think is I don't really want to I don't want to talk about the negative because I feel like it's almost in poor taste to talk about that because man, I'm filled with so much gratitude for that happening. But yeah, the thing is, you know what it did more than anything is it just pushed me out there. Us, I should say, but I was perceiving it on an individual level just because of my own subjective character experience stuck in my own mind, right? But the I just got propelled forward so fast that I heard from everybody that just everybody. And they're just, and also, yeah, just the crazy stuff, like, man, I don't, I should, yeah, a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff. And, yeah, it was pretty incredible in a way. And I suppose I could say that, it was probably the pinnacle or zenith of my life in terms of feeling like I've accomplished something substantial, and then that translating to something empirical that I can feel and see, and a validation, I suppose you could say, of sorts. There's a living validation of this amazing, triumphant achievement. But then I guess there was also the aftermath of it that includes many things, but I don't know if I don't know if to delve in or not, because I just don't want people to think that I'm like having sort of like a negative view of that. I feel so lucky that this stuff happened, you
You
know?
can share whatever you want. I mean, it doesn't all have to be positive, but whatever you feel like sharing, that's what we're here. We're just having a authentic conversation. So
Man, I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to say it. But yeah, it's like, I guess the main stuff, without pointing fingers, is like people's I guess also including myself. There's a lot of interpersonal conflict that occurs when you have something that big happen, because then it becomes a bit of a pissing contest concerning who made it possible. So a lot of the disharmony that I guess you could say was befell the members of Team Magic and anyone adjacent to us was sort of, I guess, caught up in this thing, which is, how do you do it again? That whole thing. Because you don't set out to be a one-hit wonder, right? And I don't think of this as a one-hit wonder anyway. In some countries, we have numerous songs that people know. Like in Brazil, we have a few different hits. In Canada, we have 9 different radio records. But let's face it, in America, we are a one-hit wonder in terms of having one massive smangarang of a song, and then them just not being familiar at all with the rest of the catalog, right? And also not knowing the name of the band, but knowing the song. So those are like some two telltale signs of a song itself eclipsing every other aspect of anything. And I think for some people, for me, I feel still a great deal of gratitude with that. I'm still like, it was here given the option. Oh, you're either gonna have a big, massive single that everyone's gonna know, but it'll be the only one with this group. I'm just talking about America right now, right? Or you don't have it. Like you're gonna just nothing happens. I obviously choose to have a great single that does really well. It's still fantastic, man. But everybody in the group, without pointing fingers, handled this differently in terms of how that made them feel, what that means to them, how that affects their mentality, and I think that in itself caused some disharmony to happen through, and not always disharmony. There's plenty of harmonious moments as well. But I guess you could say some things became somewhat discordant. And I'll just say this, just to be totally honest, the worst mistake, and I know the others won't necessarily agree with me on this, but this is my true feeling. The worst mistake Magic ever made was letting go of our manager, Charles, who was the reason why we had. You could say there's numerous reasons. We composed the song. If we didn't come together and do this, there wouldn't be a song for him to promote. But he was sort of like the champion of the music, and he pushed it forward. But understandably, things occurred where people felt certain differences happened. They didn't want to continue moving forward. I still wanted to continue rolling with him. So I think the worst arguments we ever had together as a group was just me not wanting to let him go. And then everyone else sort of kind of being on board to move on. And yeah, but I still love my guys here. You know what I mean? I'm not. It's not saying this to like throw any. I'm not trying to point fingers or make people feel badly. Um, and I know that they disagree with me on this subject because we've already discussed it so much over the years. But it was kind of like I guess sort of like hitting an iceberg, sort of like the Titanic hitting an iceberg, though, having so much momentum, and then you can see this massive thing, and then if you look at it on a graph, it just kind of goes like this. It's not like the trajectory of this hasn't been this. It's been this and then that, and but now I think everything is in a good place in terms of here we are still able, like I was just in New Zealand. I played One Love Music Festival with a bunch of incredible Polynesian artists, in a city that's predominantly Maori, the people, and it's fucking awesome. Like, I'm so lucky. I still get to go around the world and do this with this group. So it's pretty fantastic. But yeah, I guess you could say that anything that was somewhat disharmonious or maybe somewhat negative that came with that moment that you're talking about. That amazing moment there was incredible. It was the aftermath of it that I suppose you could say was somewhat problematic for the team, but both beneficial and not beneficial.
I guess in hindsight, you could see that something that meteoric is probably going to shake things up. It's hard to know at the time, but looking back, it's like, could things really stay the same with that? Like, I'll share the numbers. Like, it goes to number one in 8 countries, 12.4. I added everything up from all the countries, so it looks like it's about 12.4 million units sold, which is ridiculous. It's on the list of the best-selling singles ever. And the music video has 2.5 billion views. Like, we're looking at like a third of all of Earth's population. It makes no sense. When you see those metrics, is it hard to even fathom those numbers? We think, okay, I go to an arena for a Sens game and there's 20,000 people, and you look around, you're like, this is so many people. That's 20,000. Can you fathom 12.4 million or 2.5 billion? How do you even grasp that?
I can't grasp that. I can't. I mean, it's incredible. I like your term meteoric is yeah, it was meteoric, and yeah, the meteor collided, and then we had some an incredible massive explosion, and then also the picking up the pieces afterwards. But yeah, as far as those numbers are concerned, it's hard to. I mean, I can imagine them just in a quantifiable sense, just like just the numbers, right? Number game, because no, I know it sounds crazy, but now there's other songs that have billions of hits on Spotify and on YouTube and stuff like that. We're not the only group. There's a few of them that have in the billions. But to picture them as human beings, I can't. Like, I can't picture them a billion human beings there while walking around. Like, that's hard for me to picture. I can't do it in conjunction with a hit record. I can't do it in conjunction with just like people at a stadium. They're not going to fit in a stadium anyway. Yeah, it's a mind-boggling number. So lucky to have that. And I wonder, I sometimes wonder why, and I feel so it's so lucky that it's bigger than winning the lottery. Of course, there was a lot of hard work that went into this, and yeah, there's some aptitude here. Like, we all know what we're doing. We tried to make a hit. I've been asked that before in interviews, is like, what was how did Rude, like, Rude was I really tried to make a hit song. We weren't like, here's something organic that we all believe in. It wasn't that. It was our attempt at making a pop reggae hit, and then we just actually succeeded with it. So it's pretty incredible to have that be the case. But yeah, man, I was never expecting for this to be the case, and I was never expecting these numbers to be that high. And no, I can't imagine it, bro. It's crazy.
So I found a cool stat. So back in 2001, Nickelback releases How You Remind Me, which goes on to be one of the biggest radio singles of all time. And then 13 years later is the next Canadian band to have a number one on the Billboard Hot 100, and that was Magic. So you
Really?
guys were the first
Really?
Canadian band in 13 years since Nickelback to top that chart. So I thought that is something that is pretty cool that I would want to know about. And I want to talk about Canada's Grammys. So we have the Junos,
Yeah,
and with that song and with that album, you guys took home two Junos. So
yeah,
one for the single root and then one for Breakthrough Group of the Year. What did
yeah.
it mean to you to not only get nominated, but to win essentially Canada's Grammys? So it's your country acknowledging your hard work, your talent, and your gift.
Man, it meant everything. It honestly meant everything. I was so happy to do that. I remember performing at that, or my whole family came there, and my girlfriend came there, and we it was so sweet. I remember that like it was yesterday. It was a beautiful moment, and yeah, we're so lucky that we got recognized in our own home country. So yeah, I really loved. I'm very proud of having those Junos. I think I got one from Inner Ninja too with Classified. Um, but yeah, man, it was awesome. And like, what else can I say? We're so lucky. I'm so proud to be Canadian. Especially at a time like this. Not to get so political, but when people are threatening to acquire Canada and stuff like that, it just makes me I'm even more proud to be part of such a very beautiful place with great people, the mosaic of cultures. We cover a special place in Canada, and so yeah, winning the Canadian awards is great. And all I got to tell the Junos is give me some more now. So give me some more for some other stuff. It's just let's have
Hey,
some more. Let's
we're
move
we're gonna
forward.
manifest. We're putting that out into the
Yeah, let's
ether.
manifest.
It's gonna
Creative
manifest
visualization.
itself.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about rude that to you sometimes you feel like you're kind of seen as a one-hit wonder. I mean, I've always thought of you guys as having, six massive hits, eight massive hits, 10 massive hits. So let's talk about the other singles. So Don't Kill the Magic came out after it was a top 10 hit in Canada. And we have a fan question. This is from John Michael Lelievre. And his question is, I've always enjoyed Don't Kill the Magic over Rude. I'd be interested to hear which one he actually likes better. So we have a fan of Don't Kill the Magic here.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I
Are you
like them both.
allowed to have a favorite child? Is that a thing as a musician?
No, yeah, no. I mean, I absolutely, absolutely. But I feel like I think I like Rude better than Don't Kill the Magic, just personally. But I do like Don't Kill the Magic. My favorite one, the one I'm the most proud of, because I produced most of it, was Let Your Hair Down. So I really like that one. That one I put most of myself into in terms of the production and like the guitar solo and everything. I just kind of like, I try to really do the best I could on that particular song. Not to say it's just because of that is my favorite one, but it just happens to resonate with me the most. So out of the Magic songs, that would be the one. Don't Kill the Magic. I like it. Just sounds a little like easy listening pop rock to me. That I'm just it's not the genre that I enjoy that much. Not to I appreciate his question so much, and thank you for liking it. I'm just to be totally honest and personal and just say my real feelings. Like it's not my preferred genre of music.
So we have Let Your Hair Down that you mentioned, and that's another top 10 hit in Canada where it goes platinum. And then No Way No was the fourth single. It went gold in Canada. So man, you got all these hits. Like I don't know why I would never say you guys are a one-hit wonder. I would love to
Oh.
I would love to have your one-hit wonder career with like 10 massive hits. But I wanted to ask about No Way No. So No Way No has such a cool bass line. I find that that's one of the
Yeah,
biggest hooks in that song.
yeah.
So I reached out to someone that knows that bass line intimately, and I have a quote here from Magic bass player Ben Spivak. So
Yeah.
Ben sent in. I infiltrated the Magic camp. So this is what Ben says. He says. Mark is a mad musical genius. I think that's a compliment.
Oh,
He's a
wow.
master
Okay.
guitarist, master pianist, master producer, and he's still constantly improving. He practices drums for hours a day, and he's gonna master that too. He's always so encouraging. Anytime I want him to show me a lick or something on guitar, he takes the time to teach, no matter how easy it is for him. And when he's leading a session, he makes you feel so good about what you're playing because he says it's great and then edits the crap out of it to actually make it great, which he does in about 3 seconds because he's so fast on Logic. Musically, there's nothing he can't do. Mark could have gone down any musical path he chose, and I feel very lucky and blessed to have had a front row seat to the Mark Pelli show by being in a band with him for the last 12 years, plus the 5 or so years we played together before that. Love you, Marky. That's from Ben.
Oh my God. Oh, wow, Ben. Jeez. That's so sweet. I love that guy. That's so sweet. So sweet. Yeah, well, I feel the same way about him. Shit, like what the hell? Like that took me by surprise. I don't want to cry here in this interview, like, because I wasn't expecting that, man. I wasn't expecting to hear that. But yeah, about the bass though, like back to the he that's his bass line. He came up with that part. That was his hook. I didn't come up with any of that. I didn't even edited that one. Alex edited that one, and then worked on that with him. That was all him, man. That was him, and I believe Alex and Nasri were there together with him too, and he just came up with that. That's the most iconic riff we got, and that's his riff. So shit, like we gotta give credit where it's due, and it's certainly not to me, and not on that by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, but and also like that's I just want to say Ben's it's such a pleasure playing with Ben. He's my guy. We have a lot of fun on tour, and it's just like yeah. I mean, I love all my guys. It's a pleasure playing with Nasri and Carlos too, and I miss Alex. I miss him. He's my guy. I was just saw him a couple days ago. But yeah, he's moved on to different things. He's just fully in production mode these days. But the yeah, these days I've actually really been enjoying playing with Magic, and it's sort of weird because there was a period of time that I kind of felt like, oh, are people upset with me or something? Like I could, but it's because I think I argued a lot about letting go of Charles. I didn't want to let go of Charles. I really felt like he should stay a part of the project. Then I was sad when Alex left the band. And not to say the other team people we brought in weren't great. There were great people we brought into. A lot of great people that got involved. I'm just saying those are my feelings. But then recently, I was actually really want to tour a lot of Magic. Nasri's doing a lot of his solo music these days and working on that, which is wonderful. But I actually think that it's a good time for Magic to continue doing our thing, and um, yeah. But Ben and me had a lot of fun when we did the Magic question mark. And we saw we discovered is that when we sang "Rude," it was the same phenomena. Everyone just lost their mind. They'll pull out their phone. It was like literally the same thing. It was like kind of what happens at our show now. We play a bunch of songs. They like it. They're into it. But then "Rude," oh my God, lose their mind. So it was the same thing for Magic. We had the same experience, man. Yeah.
The last thing I'll say about that album, Don't Kill the Magic, my favorite song is actually How Do You Want to Be Remembered? Do
Nice.
you do you have any, I don't know, any stories, anything about that song that just comes to you right now? I find that
Honestly,
such a beautiful and meaningful song.
yeah, honestly, that one was mostly Nasri did that song. He wrote that one. I believe unless my memory is not serving me correctly, he wrote that whole one on his own. I didn't have any lyrics to do with that. I think on that song, I played some guitar and made a couple suggestions for the reggae vibe of it. But it was really kind of him and Adam that teamed up on that one, and I think they were going for like one of those like legacy kind of songs. They wanted it to sound a little more slightly more of a reggae vibe than some of our other ones. That one actually leans in a little more to that, and it's got a, guess you could say, one of those like lyrical messages that's just it's not love gained or love lost. It's more like how do you want to be remembered? It's sort of like that kind of like a question that yeah, so that yeah, all credit goes to him and Adam on that. They really they crushed that one. I'm happy you like that song. I like that one too. We used to play that live. We don't so much anymore.
I find that that's actually the best that his voice has ever sounded. I find it,
Oh,
like the
good.
delivery on
Good
that
delivery.
song was just an incredible vocal delivery.
Good, good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds great on that.
So let's dive into the next album. So Primary Colors comes out in 2016, three singles, Lay You Down Easy, Red Dress, No Regrets. The album was a top 20 hit in Canada. Uh, how much pressure did you guys feel having to follow up? You mentioned this a little bit earlier, but having to follow up the last album and the single Rude.
Yeah, there was a ton of pressure. There was a ton of pressure. And I think that's when a lot of the, I guess if you could, I was mentioning the sort of like stage where we were having some disagreements and stuff like that. But you know, it was all still healthy. That was kind of occurring around that period of time. And I think, but you know what, this is par for the course with most bands, because the thing is, you have your initial statement that is received or not received. In our case, received quite well. Then the pressure's on to deliver the second album. And then the question is, do you evolve sonically, I mean, and the direction of your music, and or do you just stay in your lane? So that was one of the ones that would that, I think that was one of the main things that was happening was between the management was where we're trying to everyone would stay. They wanted us to stay in the same lane. Basically, it was just like, yo, give us Rude over and over again, right? And then I think Nas and Ben at that period of time were more of the opinion that we should kind of evolve. And I think Alex and me were kind of in between on what to do. Of course, personally, I would love to evolve always, like the Beatles. You have one album, and then the next album's incredibly different, another incredibly different album. You just move forward. But these days, and I shouldn't even say these days because this is a decade old, this occurrence here, but it's sort of like not like that anymore. You don't really have the room to evolve like the Beatles did. You're not really exploring technology as it continues to improve. I guess we are now with AI, and we're going to see some things change.
But also
Uh,
labels before knew that they had this artist that they were willing to support over experimental albums and over a career versus like, oh, this album didn't sell next, right? So there was
correct.
more support before, I think.
Correct. There was more support. That's a good point. And you brought up the word that actually triggered my mind too, which is album. And the concept of ingesting a full album was just common back in the day. You would buy a vinyl, you'd listen to all the songs, including what we would now be considered like deep album cuts or like, but now when you go on Spotify or whatever, you just listen to whatever song you want to listen to, or you listen to a playlist of numerous songs that you want to listen to. You don't necessarily just like listen to the whole body of work from an artist. Maybe some people do. So that's kind of, so yeah, back in the day, they would make albums cohesive and it would all have a sort of thematic vibe and it would all be kind of similar. Now people are just striving to make hits. Our hit off album one was Rude. What is the hit off album two? That's a simple A&R based question. It's like, okay, you guys give us Root on album number one. What are the target singles on this next body of work? So that's kind of what the issue was with that is like making a song that you thought had the potential to be a contender of your big smash. Yeah. And so I think we did make some great catchy songs. Like Red Dress is a super catchy song. Lay Down Easy is a catchy song. But they were still eclipsed. The Rude was still getting played on radio. You know, it was still a hit on radio. It was tricky. It was one of those tricky things. I hesitate to say this, but to some markets, the brand was summed up in one song. So it's almost like, yeah, you can make a new song, but that song though, that's how they looked at it. It's tricky with reggae, even though we're not an authentic reggae band. And by that I mean like a real roots reggae band, like from Jamaica. Um, the we they only have one hit of that style per every 10 years or 7 years or whatever. Comes in and out of pop music. So to keep on hammering them home with that vibe, and here's the next smash single pop reggae from these guys from Toronto. It's hard. It was a hard. I knew without even starting that second album that it was going to be hard. I'm still proud of the music we made, mind you, production wise, the vibe wise, like all the stuff in there. I'm proud of my guitar stuff and all that kind of thing. But I'm just talking about the reception of the music because when you're making pop, you're not really making it for yourself. You're making it for the world. So you measure yourself in how well it does. Yeah.
So I have a similar example. So again, most people don't know what it's like to have a song as big as Rude and the things that come with that and how hard it is to follow that up. I've been able to interview three different members of Finger 11 multiple times, and they said the same thing. So, they've had, I don't know, 20 big hits, but they had Paralyzer that is the same as Rude, one of the biggest songs ever. And they were saying that after Paralyzer, anytime they would give another hit song to radio, either they would say, "Oh, this doesn't sound like Paralyzer," and they didn't want it, or they would say, "This sounds just like Paralyzer. We've already heard Paralyzer," and they just couldn't win after having that big of a hit.
I can totally that resonates with me. I totally understand it. I understand it from the frustration they felt. I also understand it from the perspective of radio and the people on the business end. It's a tricky thing to handle. It's a hard thing to, because really, like, you want it to kind of be more apparent. Like, I like, we like these Marvel movies and stuff where there's like a villain and then there's a hero. It's a us versus them kind of thing. And they're like, these guys are the major labels are all evil and these, but it's not really like that. They're just trying to make money. They're trying to find the most viable record that you have and then promote it. And so they can make money. Like, yes, they're trying to make money and you're trying to make money as well. That's the kind of the complicated aspect of this that, oopsies, did I lose you?
No, we're still here. We're good.
Sorry. Oh, here it is. My bad. I clicked the wrong thing. I was trying to get rid of another screen that kept on popping up. Yeah, and so like I don't demonize radio stations or labels for the decisions they make. I understand that they're just trying to identify that which will succeed and give that, but it is frustrating from the artist perspective because you don't want to give them the same song over and over again. And even if you do, it'll meet with those types of comments, like you said, where it's like sounds too much like the song and or it doesn't sound enough like the song. And then also from the audience's perspective, they don't necessarily want to hear your new single that sounds like your old single. And they also don't want to hear your new single that's a departure from what they loved about you from before, especially when it's like one of these, like, I don't mean this in a self-deprecating way for my own band, but when it's kind of like a shticky song, like the song is a little bit of it's got like a lot of hooks in it. It's very shticky. That's what I'm saying. It sort of almost sums it up with what it is. Like it's the entire experience of the sound is compounded in that singular arrangement. And then to go beyond that, I can understand, depending on who you're talking to, might almost be superfluous because they don't need that from you. They got it from you. That song, that was it. Of course, there's so much more that we can say. There's so much more that we can do. We're all singers in the band. We all play numerous instruments. We could do something entirely different. Never mind evolve into a new version of this. We could evolve into something so different. But people don't necessarily want to hear that, right? That's the thing. It's very tricky. It's a super hard thing. I don't understand exactly. I don't have the code cracked on that. So when people ask me, I'm not sure. I'm truly unsure.
The first single from that album, Lay You Down Easy. So this
Yeah.
features
Sean
global
Paul.
superstar Sean Paul. I
Yeah.
remember seeing the music video for the first time being like, holy shit, they got Sean Paul. Like, this is so
Yeah.
crazy. So I'm going to ask you about him in a second, but I want to share the success of the song. So the song goes platinum in Canada and gold in Poland. So man, you got to show some love to Poland. And
Golden
then
Poland.
gold in
Jeez.
Poland. And then it went to number one on the reggae charts in the US, number two in Brazil, and number three in Canada. So my two questions are, one, how did the opportunity present itself to work with Sean Paul and what was it like working with him? But then also, how good did it feel to to have that success with the first single off a new album?
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to answer that totally factually. Like Charles thought it would be a good idea to have Sean Paul on the song, and we just hired him to be on the song. You most
Okay,
featured
Charles sounds like the
way.
man, so I think I
Yeah, well,
agree with you
for those
with
power plays, for the
yeah.
power plays, right? At the time, he was Pitbull's manager, right? And that's why Pitbull had all
Oh
those radio
wow.
hits. Charles got him all the radio hits. So, that was it. It was just a strategic move. And usually when you see a feature, it's like, oh, that's so dope. You got a feature with so and so. How this works is you just hire the person to be on your song. And sometimes they charge too much and then you got to move on to someone else. And that's just it. Sometimes these alliances occur based on friendships, right? Like, oh, I got so and so featuring on my next single because they're my friend, they're my boy, they're my girl. They want to appear with me. They'll feature on it for the love. We're all good. But that's not par for the course. Usually it's like, what would be dope on this record? Sean and Paul. Okay, how much are you gonna cost to jump on the bridge and put some harmonies on it and kill it? It's gonna cost this. Okay, great. We get it. Boom. That's it. That's truly, I wish there was a more organic like story
Mm.
about that that just like sounds better, but it was just literally hiring him to be on the song. But he's really dope though. And I became buddies with him when we shot the video for it at Alex's house. Still got him on my phone. I should hit him up, see how he's doing. He's super nice. Really talented guy too. We were singing together and he was just like, they know him for doing that thing, but that guy can do a lot of stuff. He's a talented guy. So we all really like Sean. And you had another question after that. I forgot.
Just
Sorry.
how good did it feel after the pressure of the first album to have a hit single right off the bat with the second album?
Oh, I see what you're saying. You know what? So that's interesting to ask it like that because, like, I guess it would appear as though we did, but we didn't really have a hit off it. It was not a hit. It was it did okay. Yeah, you know what? And that's the
Well,
tricky
I
thing.
guess because it goes gold or it goes platinum in Canada, but you think, okay, well, Canada's not that big, so it's not the same as going platinum in the US. And I guess you start to kind of lower what that success means because it's not, Hot 100 number three.
No, but you're reminding me of, and this is one of the discussions I had when this pivotal period of time for the band is that we were getting looks off all our releases during that period of time. And even though they weren't become necessarily global smash hit phenomenons, they were still topping charts in certain territories. And that's nothing to scoff at. That's still really wonderful. And it could also be argued, as you're saying, that it is a hit. If your song is gold in a country, it's a hit, right? That's like just factual. That's not even like an opinion. You're absolutely right. But I'm then incorrect when I say that it wasn't because I was kind of then veering to the other mentality we had where, well, it just isn't compared to the success of Rude. Also, it's just, it has to do with label investment. How much money they put into a song, its promotion, like its marketing budget, bro, to radio stations, a marketing budget for shooting a music video, marketing budget for promotional materials of other sorts, right? If that budget exceeds how much money comes in, even if the song does relatively well in a particular area, it's not necessarily looked at as a win. You have to like make more than you put out on it. And I think maybe what we were seeing was actually album two was still okay. By album three, that started happening to an even greater extent. The difference between outgoing money and incoming money. Um, so but yeah, man, I was still so happy that we released that song, and I was actually proud of that whole album.
Yeah, that album as well. I played a ton, and I think it's just as solid as the one before it. There's two more singles on it. I'll mention
Yeah,
Red Dress and No Regrets.
yep,
I wanted to share something else. So, producer Adam Messenger has been friends with you guys for a long time. He's worked on a
yeah,
lot of albums for Magic. And someone else that he has produced is Eva Avila, the
yeah. I
multi-platinum
know her. Yeah.
selling Canadian Idol a winner, Brit Floyd vocalist. Uh, I happen to be friends with Eva, and I got some kind words here from her. So she says, Mark, what a great and talented guy, a super kind human being. I only got the chance to hang out with Mark a handful of times, but his energy is just so positive and authentic. Not to mention, he's a ridiculously talented musician. So much soul. Great sense of humor, too. He's awesome, and I hope to cross paths with him again sometime. You absolutely rock, Mark, and I wish you the very best. So that's from Eva Avila.
Aw, that's so sweet. Thanks, Eva. That's so sweet. Yeah, I know she's my friend. That's so cool. I didn't know that you knew her too. That's so great. Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm really humbled by all the nice comments from people like that. That's so sweet. I really appreciate that. Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, we did. We did hang out a handful of times, and she's a super talented girl herself. I really love her voice, and Adam did produce music for her. That's right. I actually forgot that they had worked together, but they absolutely did.
So
Yeah,
she's the last few years she's been singing with Brit Floyd, which is the number one Pink Floyd tribute band in the world. Like they play arenas.
I know. I saw
They're
that.
amazing, and it's the 50th anniversary of my favorite album of all time, which is "Wish You Were Here." So
Yeah,
that's what they're currently touring, and she's in the UK right now. I just talked to her, and so that's what she's up to. So she's doing some pretty cool
amazing.
things.
I knew she was with that. I knew she was with that. I didn't know she was in the UK right now. That's awesome. I'm sure she's crushing that.
So I love all three singles off the album. Again, to me, all three sound like hits. I don't know what it is about you guys, but to me, when it comes to the chorus, you guys know how to write a hit song. No Regrets is a beautiful song. I'm wondering as a guitarist when I hear the acoustic guitar riff, was that the start of the song that maybe you came up with that riff and built a song around it, or was it reverse
Not
engineered?
I can't remember what his name was. He was a UK producer, but that actually was just Nasri, and I played some acoustic guitar on that song. I just did some like razzle dazzle stuff to make it sound a little more interesting. But most of that riff is just the guy who produced the song.
Okay.
I can't remember his name. Something Fraser.
There's a
Uh,
cool like tag at the end of the line. Like there's a
yeah,
cool
I put that
yeah.
tag in. Yeah, that's I put that part in. That's
That's so
pretty much
tasty, man.
it.
That's I'm trying to say as a guitarist, that's a tasty
Oh, thank
lick
you, man.
right there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, but the rest of the acoustic guitar, I didn't even play on that particular song. Yeah.
So to wrap up with that album, I was able to find two quotes that I thought were pretty good. So from All Music, they praised the band for creating pop songs that are both feel good and catchy, while also writing a few sleepy ballads and defiant outbursts that offer some variety. Concluding that Primary Colors is a much tighter, more enjoyable album that shows Magic can craft ultra summary songs confidently and consistently. So that's from All Music. And then from Renowned for Sound, they felt that the band had surpassed their hit single with their second album, saying that in 10 tracks, Magic has written and created an easily digestible pop tropical paradise from the 80s within Primary Colors. A proverbial invitation for listeners to not judge a book by its cover, or in this case, an artist by their global chart topper. So that's from Renowned for Sound. So I thought you'd enjoy a couple reviews here.
Yeah, because I read bad reviews of the second album from Rotten Tomatoes and another one, and they were bad ones. But now those are two good ones. Thanks for only reading the good ones, pal. That's how we
I
do it here. We keep it positive, right?
See, your response is the same every time I read positive reviews. The artist, so I remember I had Papa Roach drummer Dave on here, so the album's here for Infest. So that's with
Yeah.
Last Resort on it, and I read a review that has stuck with me since that came out in I think 2000, where it said, once I'm able to pick my jaw up off the floor, I'll finish telling you how great this album is. I remember that review just stuck with me forever, and when I shared that with him, he goes, where was that review my whole life? He goes, I only remember critics hated the album.
Same for well, not for his album, it's dope. I'm just saying like for that particular album, I remember reading reviews and I was so disheartened by it because I was like, what? Like, but yeah.
So in 2018, you guys release Expectations. So three singles, Darts in the Dark, Kiss Me, and Expectations. Some of the songs like Darts in the Dark and A Little Bit of Love, they drop like EDM choruses. I'm wondering where that influence comes from.
Not me, pal, not me. Just joking. Yeah, but
Kind of.
I mean, I like that particular song. Well, actually, no, that they did it. I think Alex and Nasri primarily did that particular song. I liked it. That wasn't my favorite one. I didn't really like that vibe. I didn't think that was it for us. But
You're
production still
saying on
sounds
that
dope.
song specifically,
Yeah, that song.
Darts in the Dark.
Yeah,
I remember being caught off guard. So I was listening to it while driving, and when
yeah.
the beat dropped in the chorus,
Oh,
I had just listened to the first two albums, so I
right.
didn't expect it, but it was a tasty beat, and I got into it. But it caught me
Tasty.
off guard. I was like, "Whoa,
I
that's
like the
cool."
but I didn't like ding 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 ding. I just thought it was too on the nose, personally. Yeah, but since we're talking about it, I should just be like, yeah, I'm so proud of that song. But I was like, I thought it was just a little on the nose with the vibe of it and the melody. Um, yeah, but I'm not a big EDM guy anyway. I don't really. It's not my thing.
All good. Let's talk about Inner Love Energy. So that's 2024. So this is a recent
Yeah.
release. Four singles: Inner Love Energy, Ballerina, Good Feeling, Sunflower Fields. How good did it feel to release an album after 6 years?
Man, it felt great, and I should mention that some of those songs were like in the making from beforehand. Um, in the years leading up to that. Um, and it was great. We're all proud of this, the most recent album. It was like something that we were hoping to do. We wanted to get something out, and for a while we took it wasn't like I guess a bit of a hiatus, during COVID too, and then also just even before that, and we were like just unsure how to proceed because of the reception of the third album was not so good. I do love Kiss Me though, I should mind you, off the third album. I thought that was great. And that was um Ben reharmonized that song. I love what he did with that. It sounded great. I love the melodies and lyrics Nas did on it. I love the production of it. And in my mind, I just wanted it to kind of sound like All Night Long by Lionel Richie. And they kind of did that a little bit with we kind of it's sort of that sort of vibe. That one I'm proud of off that particular album. Then the most recent album, there's a lot of great songs on there that we're all super proud of. My favorite one actually is didn't have anything to do with. I didn't even play guitar on it. It was Ben that played guitar on it. It was his riff. It was the Sunflower Field song. I really like it's so Beatlesy to me, and I love it. I just love how the song makes me feel. I like what him and Nasri did on it. It just sounds Beatlesy to me, and I think the fact that I didn't have really hardly anything to do with it is makes it even better to me because I just like listen to it as just as its own song. Almost if I just heard that, like it's not even it's like somebody else's song, and I'm just listening to it. I really like that one. Um, yeah,
So this is the first independently released album from Magic. What were
yeah.
the pros, the good things of not being shackled to a label?
I mean, to be totally honest with you, brother, there are no good things about not being shackled to a label, in my perspective. I mean, some people might say that, okay, you have total artistic control and this and that, but we had that even from before. Really, um, I don't know. I mean, I know what people often say in response to that, but like what I've found is that when you have a label, they'll promote the music. There's a budget. Whereas if you have an independent distributor, all they can do is on day one, they either get you on a bunch of playlists or they don't. And that's where the battle begins and ends. And it's just kind of true, man. And like, so for instance, like if your distributor is trying to get you on New Music Friday America, and then your song comes out that Friday, if you don't get on New Music Friday, then your distributor that hasn't gone well, then, I'm not pointing my fingers at them. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. I'm just saying this new contemporary model of having, very low barrier to global release is wonderful for the independent artist in terms of their ability to release music quickly and effectively across the world. But in terms of discovery, it makes it even harder because it's so oversaturated that, like, let's say you want to do your due diligence today and only discover brand new artists. Like, I'm only gonna listen to brand new artists that I'm like, undiscovered artists. You're not going to even crack. There's 80,000 new songs that come out every day. You're not going to even be able to go through point zero something of the amount of song. You can't do it. Even with your best efforts. So you're still relying on people advocating for those songs. And then usually it happens in the form of a playlist if you're looking at it from a DSP perspective, because how else are you supposed to even know about the exist? It's not like you heard this, like, I'll give it a chance. Let me hear it. Okay, I heard it. I love it. Or I heard it. I don't really like it. Even you not really liking someone's song is a huge victory for them because you actually listen to their music. But usually what happens is it's just invisible. It just sits there, completely invisible. No one will ever hear it. Magic, luckily, we have 15 million monthly listeners on Spotify, albeit 95% of them are just listening to Root, mind you. Like, I see it myself. Like that's actually it. So, but still, some are going to go check out the other material. So at least we got that. But for an independent artist, let's say you're an independent artist, you're an independent artist. What's the benefit of releasing your song through an independent distributor versus a label? Like there is no benefit. You might think to yourself just to be positive, well, at least I can control the direction of my music. That's about it. Beyond that, it just means that nobody cares about the promotion of your music except for you. That's essentially what it is. There's been no investment outside of whatever investment you yourself have decided to procure on behalf of your release.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's an app that what it does is it finds every song on Spotify, and there's millions. It finds every song that doesn't have a single play, and it plays those as a playlist so people can discover great unheard music. And there's an app that does the same thing for YouTube, where it finds videos that have literally zero views to see those. So it's kind of this funny way of knowing you're the first person in existence to experience this music or this video. So it's kind of to tie in with what you're saying, that it's, some stuff just goes unnoticed.
Oh yeah, and especially like to make it that specific that the number is zero. Like we organized videos and songs in terms of zero listenership of it, and now listen to it
Oh,
for
if
the
you
first
have if you
time.
have one play on your song, you're
Yeah.
too popular
Yeah,
for
so
this app.
that is now you're only hearing songs that have zero plays. What about songs that have 1.5 plays? What about songs that have 3.7 plays? It's still it's not scratching the surface of anything. You just it's like in a way it's useless.
Yeah, it's just fun. It's just a
Yeah,
fun app.
yeah.
I have just a few questions left for you as we wrap up here. Man, you've already, I mean, you're a young guy, but you've had a lengthy career in the music industry. How do you keep this fun?
You think I'm young,
Look
Joel?
at this young, handsome
I'm
fella.
young. I'm so
Maybe it's
old,
good
bro.
lighting. I don't know.
I'm 44
Maybe
years
maybe you
old.
have like a Brad Pitt filter on. I don't know what's going
Wow,
on, but
that's you, pal. That's you, handsome guy. Come on, jeez. I'm 44, man. So yeah, no, I'm not young, but I appreciate it, man. And what did you say?
how do you keep this fun after all these years in the music industry that can be taxing, and it's a lot of work, and wins and losses and heartbreak and achievement still today? What keeps you wanting to move forward doing this and having fun while you do it?
Man, I haven't lost the fun at all. I love it so much. Like I play gigs every week here in LA. I sing mainly soul Motown covers at a club called the Rhythm Room, and usually on Saturday nights here. I just played a gig a couple days ago at another place in West Hollywood. So for me, I know it's like in a way sort of anticlimactic from going from these massive arenas and stuff. I still play big shows, with Magic and other stuff sometimes. But the way I keep it fun is just I love singing around the city and performing music. So I'll usually play in a trio, and I'll bring they got a piano there already. I'll bring my guitar, I'll sing some covers and play them and just kind of deconstruct them. I also love playing jazz music. I got a chance to play with Terrace Martin last month. That was awesome. I've played with the amazing Logan Richardson as well as Damian Reed, who's Robert Glasper's uh, drummer off his first album, and yeah, I got some amazing musicians I play with here for different genres. So for me to keep it fun is I just gotta like keep going. I don't want to not play anymore. I don't care about the money. Luckily, the money's come in from publishing. So now I just play around the city. They pay me a couple $100 to go sing some covers. I don't care. It's great. I enjoy it. I connect with new artists. I love teaching too. I teach at colleges and universities for, usually for jazz ensembles. But for whatever, they brought me in to talk about songwriting and pop music and production. I love producing too, so I still produce all the time. I've got artists constantly coming through here. Some of them is transactional. Some other ones we share ownership of their masters and the publishing and stuff like that. So I keep it fun by just not stopping, brother. I just want to keep going. I don't want to stop. I'm still going on this, and I had some really bad health stuff happen last year, and it just made me feel very lucky to still be alive and lucky to be working on music with people. And so I'm very grateful. It's still fun for me. I really enjoy it. I'm not hopefully not going to be stopping anytime soon. I hope not at least.
And when you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of and what are you most grateful for?
Oh wow. Well, I'm definitely I think magic in general, I'm very proud and grateful for the band that we started. I know we talked so much about it already, but I am absolutely grateful for the song Rude that came out. That's really been a huge blessing in my life. Even though we talked a bit about the other side of it, this paradox that exists, and there's kind of like a can be, depending on your perspective, somewhat of a negative component that you have to battle with, mostly psychological. I am super grateful for that, and I'm very proud. Um, I just so many things. It's hard for me to even. I don't know where to like. I guess the song I'm the most proud that I co-produced was Kevin's Heart with my buddy T minus out of Toronto. We
That was
did it
for
for
J.
Jake.
Cole.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of that one. I'm like, super proud because I think J. Cole is so dope, and I think
Mm.
T minus is so dope, and just the whole thing was just like made me feel proud that I'm like that I did that, because I could have just as easily not have done it. It didn't occur. So I'm lucky that my friends believe in me as much as I believe in them, and yeah, I'm surrounded by some good people, so I'm lucky and grateful.
That's amazing you worked with J. Cole. He's one of the greats, and every year I have a list of the best albums of the year in my opinion, and I had J. Cole's album last year, Might Delete Later, in my top 6 albums of 2024. So he's amazing. I'm a big fan.
So great, man. Super prolific. He's always working.
And what if you could go back in time and you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you could whisper words of advice? So, taking everything from being 10 years old to 44, all the lessons and experience and mentorship, the highs and lows, if you could whisper words of advice to cute little Mark sitting there to help guide him through this human experience, what do you tell him?
Oof, that's a good question. I mean, I'll answer it honestly, but I'll get kind of personal. Now that I found out I have some congenital heart stuff and I got some health issues, I would tell that person to be more careful. That and that don't experiment with it. I did a little too much experimenting, with various things throughout my life. I would dissuade my young self from entering on the path that I entered on, especially for a period of time. Um, I would also tell my younger self, because now these days I hit the gym every day. I'm so like focused on health and fitness. I would tell my younger self to eat a little better. My young self just love to eat whatever, you know. Um, but also, I don't want to ruin some young person's life, making them adhere to some strict dietary plan. But I'm just saying, if I could talk to my young self, this is just to me specifically. I'm not trying to shame anyone else out there. Yeah, I would definitely try to eat a little better, and you mentioned you speak French before, which is so great. I would have told my young self, pay attention more in French class because this is going to come in very useful. I would have actually told myself maybe it's time to go to Lycée Français or some sort of institution-based thing where I can learn French a little better because I always saw it as like, oh, why do I have to do French class? And I didn't. That was the pervasive mentality around my school. It was like, oh, this is pointless. But it was actually spending, considering how much time I would then spend in France playing music. I would absolutely benefit from having that another language. So I would tell myself that.
Your orders would have come in correctly at the restaurants there had you learned French.
Certainly, brother. They would have come in correctly. I would have been able to say things much better. Uh, I'm okay. I'm okay just because I got lucky to spend time there. But yeah, it would have been way better if I could, you know. And there's the list goes on, man. Some stuff is not appropriate for me to say. So
That's all good. Is there anything appropriate you can say to the fans that have stuck with you all the way from the beginning? Anything to the fans that are listening, to the Mark fans, to the solo career, the Magic fans?
yeah, and well, I should mention I'm about to drop a new single called "Pack It Up," which is in a Motown vibe. But I really like making retro Motown songs, so look out for that. And also, thank you so much for caring about my music or about magic or anything. I'm so appreciative of my fans of me or my music or anything that I'm involved with. I'm humbled by you guys, and I really am like I don't even know how much to express my gratitude that you would be interested in anything that I do musically and beyond. So thank you so much for hitting me up. I know I get messages a lot about music stuff and whatever. I really appreciate that. Don't hesitate to contact me anytime. And also, if you have any questions, if you're trying to do music yourself too or anything, please let me know. Hit me up. I'm an open book when it comes to all that, and I do try to get back to everybody. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but I really I do my best to hit everyone back. And so thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon. Maybe do some shows wherever you live.
So, as we wrap up, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a musician, as a songwriter, as a producer. I want to commend you for dreaming big, having that big music dream and actually having the courage to follow through and go after those goals, those dreams. And from the outside, it looks like you achieved many of them, which is incredible. I want to thank you for putting out a bunch of great albums, putting out so many incredible songs. Your music has become the soundtrack to the lives of millions of people around the world, including myself. And last but not least, I want to thank you for spending the last 2 hours with me. I mentioned to you before we started recording that I've been a fan of yours since the beginning, and it's been amazing to see your journey to the highest possible peaks that are available in the music industry. So I had so many questions that I wanted to know the answers to. You've answered all of them. I'll be able to sleep like a baby tonight. So, Mark, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for asking me to do it. Thanks for being such an excellent person to talk to and having such great questions and being a master of your own craft as well too. I'm happy that you did music too and that you have a passion for this and I'm humbled that you asked me to do this, man. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I hope to so we got to hang in person soon, man. If I come to Ottawa, I'll hit you up, brother.
Amazing. So, you're very welcome. And to the Mark fans, to the Magic fans, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See you guys later.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Who would you like me to feature next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know in the comments. You can also send me an email at joelmartinmastery@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on all social media platforms at joelmartinmastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.